Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and today we're going to be summarizing everything the Miami Dolphins have done this offseason thus far and attempting to attach a letter grade to it. So basically, this is the first quarter of the Miami Dolphins offseason. The second quarter is everything leading up to the draft, as all the mock drafts start coming out. Third quarter would be the immediate aftermath of the draft, and then the final quarter would be the second wave of free agency, which is when we're really going to start to get an idea of what the final rosters are going to look like for the regular season to begin. So, we're going to get into all that, attach a letter grade for the first quarter of the Miami Dolphins offseason, but first, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each is totally up to you. All you have to do is choose the over or the under on those individual players' fantasy projections, whether that's individual stats or the classic fantasy point projections. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials to where you get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code 5, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, F-I-V-E. Go to prizepicks.com and get yourself started winning today. And if you are a South Florida resident looking to protect your home or business with impact-rated windows and doors, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders, who specialize in impact window and door installation for residential and commercial properties. All Pro Construction Builders is a state-certified, licensed, and insured general contractor that services Miami-Dade, Monroe, and Broward counties. They only use top-quality products that are locally made, and they are a family-owned and operated business where you will only deal with the owner from start to finish. They offer competitive and affordable pricing, as well as 100% financing with no upfront cost or down payment. So if you're looking for a trustworthy and reliable contractor whom offers quality service, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders. They will provide you with a free estimate and help you protect your home in less than 8 weeks. Call Danny at 305-484-4429 and make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount on your free estimate. Again, you call Danny at 305-484-4429 and make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount and get yourself started today. So let's get into grading the Miami Dolphins offseason so far. Now, since I'm terrible at making sure that there's an average here, I'm going to go ahead and use a handy-dandy online letter grade calculator to make sure that every grade that I give out right now for every single transaction, it'll eventually average out to what a grade would be. So, class is in session, and let's see what Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel measure up. So the very first official transaction, as listed by the Miami Dolphins website, was the release of tight end / fullback / whatever you want to call him, Seth Carter, and they tendered exclusive rights free agent defensive back Elijah Campbell. So when it comes to the release of Seth Carter, obviously that was just going to be a complete and utter nothing. So it doesn't really make much of a difference. I would go ahead and give that move a B+, simply because, again, he doesn't really have that much of an impact on everything. He wasn't really doing much. He had concussion history. You want to talk about concussions. He was out for a long time with a concussion, Seth Carter was. And even when he was here and he was playing, it wasn't like Seth Carter was making much of an impact to begin with. So he was probably a complete waste. Seth Carter, I believe, now went back to the Cincinnati Bengals, which is where he was initially signed from in the first place. So ironically, he gets a homecoming to Cincinnati, and Miami just gets rid of some dead weight because Carter wasn't doing anything. I'll give that move a B+ because, honestly, again, it doesn't really make that much of an impact, so I can't knock it. I can't celebrate it too much either, but it was probably a good move just because it was a waste of space. Now, the re-signing of Elijah Campbell, that was a no-brainer for the Miami Dolphins. Hard-hitting safety, young kid still, has incredible potential as a backup player. And when he was called upon to step up when a lot of players ended up getting injured, Campbell did pretty well in the role that he was given. So bringing him back, quite frankly, again, I'll go ahead and I will give that a grade of A. He's a high-potential backup. He's great in pinch situations. Yes, he's made some mistakes, but most young players end up doing just that. And considering the fact that he continues to be a very highly talked about player in that locker room, the fact that everybody seems to appreciate him, and we've seen already in games that he can make some big plays. That's an easy move for the Miami Dolphins. Elijah Campbell deserves to stay and have a chance to compete in training camp. Okay, so now, on March 10th, the Miami Dolphins officially re-signed running back Savan Ahmed. I am already on record saying that I appreciated the fact that the Miami Dolphins kept continuity in the running back room. Now, Is Savan Ahmed the greatest thing since sliced bread? No. But as a third running back, he's a solid option. He already knows the scheme because he's been in it. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and give that one a B because, yeah, you probably could have found somebody who's better suited for the job, maybe another veteran out there somewhere. Just because you have older guys doesn't necessarily mean they're bad players all of a sudden, if they're running backs. But Savan Ahmed, for what he is, he's a fantastic choice. I'm going to go ahead and give that a B as a third running back. Now, this is the real big one here, right? On March 15th, this is the official part where we agreed to terms with the Los Angeles Rams to bring Pro Bowl cornerback Jalen Ramsey to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for what? Oh, yeah, a 2023 third-round pick and tight end Hunter Long. One of the biggest steals of the past decade, of which somehow Chris Grier has been behind the other two. Bradley Chubb and Tyreek Hill obviously came via trade. Tyreek is more of a bigger impact player than Chubb is at this point, but Jalen Ramsey, again, is a top 5 cornerback in spite of the fact that he is getting older, and all it took was a third-round pick and Hunter Long, which nobody even remembers. I saw the comments when the Rams announced that they had acquired Hunter Long, and everybody in the comments was like, who's that? I have no idea who that is. So this is an easy A+ for Chris Grier. Congratulations to him for pulling off another major upset in the offseason, which just gets everybody's blood boiling because everybody has to come up with reasons why Jalen Ramsey won't make an impact on the Miami Dolphins because, well, they'll still suck because Tua's their quarterback. They're just upset. They don't want the Dolphins to be good. Now, on that same day, the Miami Dolphins also went ahead and released Byron Jones with a failed physical and a post-June 1st cut. So that will save the Miami Dolphins approximately $13 million come June 1st. Now, this move, it kind of bothers me only because I really was hoping that Byron Jones would find a way to come back. Now, obviously, the trade for Jalen Ramsey makes his presence moot because now they're not going to try to pair Byron Jones along with Jalen Ramsey and Savan Howard. Obviously, that's not going to happen, even if he was healthy. So, Byron Jones getting cut, that's obviously a good move. It was an expected move, but because it's an expected move, I'm going to go ahead and just give it a B, simply because it was the move you're supposed to make. Is nothing particularly impressive, so I'm going to give that a B as well. I hope Byron Jones manages to come back and play again. I wish him the best of luck wherever he lands next, if he lands anywhere else, because in spite of the fact that Joe Shad had to come out and say, no, Byron Jones is not officially retiring, all the tweets that he made just screamed, I'm retiring and I'm done. That's just my personal opinion on that. So I give it a B just because that was the expected move for Byron Jones. Now, bringing in Freddie Swain off of waivers from Denver, just as a reminder, Freddie Swain was on the Miami Dolphins practice squad during 2022 before he ended up in Denver. So coming back to the Dolphins a second time, I mean, Freddie Swain didn't really move the needle for me the first time they brought him in. And considering the depth at wide receiver as we know it, and especially the fact that of another move that the Miami Dolphins made later on this offseason, and we'll eventually get to grading that one as well, Freddie Swain, he's going to be a camp body. I sincerely doubt he shows up as the punt returner. So for this move, I'm going to go ahead and give it a C, just because it doesn't do anything for me. I don't see the need to bring him back. Maybe it's just because you need bodies in training camp and you want somebody who's already been in the system to some extent. Okay, that's great, but Freddie Swain doesn't do anything for me. So that's a C. I don't particularly think it needed to be done. Now, the re-signing of Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, again, I am in the camp that that's the move that the Miami Dolphins needed to make. Now, we already went over all of the rumors in one of the first shows that I did where the Dolphins were running it back at running back, and I went over all the rumors with things like Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Ezekiel Elliott. All of those moves sounded good on paper because, again, you have star power attached to your starting running back, the last final piece of the puzzle, so to speak. But the fact that Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson are being brought back, I think, is the most prudent move for the Miami Dolphins. Again, they had some of the best yards per attempt as far as rushing goes in the whole NFL. Granted, they were tied with a lot of other players, but just the fact that they were in that group to begin with is already very impressive. Though they both easily could have run for 1,000 yards if more rushing had been emphasized. So for that, I'm going to give it an A minus. And the only reason I'm adding the minus on there is because of the potential of having star power at running back. I'm not even in that camp, but I'm trying to be as objective as I can without necessarily being overly biased with my opinion. I obviously think that bringing back Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson was the best move. There were other opportunities for other players to be picked up instead, so I'm giving it an A minus only because the Dolphins missed out on some real star power at running back. But that doesn't mean that I think it was a bad move. I'm just looking at it from a sense of what could have been. Speaking of running backs, the Miami Dolphins brought back Myles Gaskin. Why? Why? I don't understand the move. Myles Gaskin, I mean, he's not going to hurt anything. He's there. He's going to do a thing. He's going to compete in training camp. He's going to maybe audition for his next team, but that's ultimately all that he's going to be any good for. Maybe they keep him around again. I didn't think he was going to make it last season, and he did anyway. So maybe they keep him around a second time. I don't think they should. I feel like they should have depth elsewhere because running back wasn't really that big of a deal. And if push comes to shove, I guarantee you somebody is just going to stick Myles Gaskin on their practice squad, and the Dolphins can always bring him back later if they really need him. So for me, bringing back Myles Gaskin, I'm sorry, I'm just going to give it a C+, because again, I just feel like there were other ideas you could have done. You could have picked any undrafted free agent to take Myles Gaskin's spot on this roster. I don't see the need for him. I don't think he accomplishes anything. I think he's just there. He's just another player who's there. I would much rather have Savan Ahmed, who I gave a higher grade to. So that's Myles Gaskin. I'm giving it a C+. Sorry, dude. So next up, they re-signed Kendall Lamb. Folks, I've already made my case on Kendall Lamb very clear. I think that Kendall Lamb has the potential to eventually beat out Austin Jackson for the right tackle spot. The only reason I don't think he would win that job is if he somehow got hurt again, or if Chris Grier, for whatever reason, is truly saying that he is insisting that Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg start just to justify his previous picks. I don't think that he's that egotistical, but I think Kendall Lamb coming back is an excellent move, so I'm going to go ahead and give that one a B+. Now, I'm giving it a B+ and not an A because while I like Kendall Lamb, he is just a guy in all honesty. He hasn't shown that he's like superstar potential. He only had one game where he was able to show up against the New England Patriots to really put some Dolphins tape out there. But he could win the job. I'm giving it a B+ because of that potential, but nothing higher than that just because I don't think he's anything particularly special. All you have to do is beat Austin Jackson. That's not a high bar. Speaking of tackles, they also re-signed Jerron Christian. I don't see why that's a big deal. There's nothing there, really. It's just another dude who's going to make an attempt at playing. I'm going to give it a C+ because, again, it's just a guy. I don't see the need to bring him in. I don't see it hurt to bring him in, but I really don't see him making anything of an impact. So for him, he gets a C+. Nothing much to say there. Next, we have the Dolphins signing Deshaun Elliott. So a hard-hitting safety from the Detroit Lions, very much in the same vein as Louis Delmas and Issa Abdul-Quddus, who both came from Detroit and both were considered hard-hitting safeties, ironically enough. So this is the third time the Dolphins have gone ahead and brought in a Detroit Lions safety who's known as a hard-hitting guy. Used to be teammates with Brandon Jones back in college. He is going to take the role of or not the role per se, but at least the place in our hearts where Jordan Poyer was supposed to be before he decided to go back to Buffalo because the Dolphins didn't give him what he wanted to get. So as enthusiastic as Poyer was, the Dolphins were not nearly as enthusiastic. I guess they lowball offered him, so he went back to Buffalo. So Deshaun Elliott is now going to try to fill that void in our hearts. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this move a B because, I mean, Elliott had a pretty good year with the Lions after he started to become a core element of that defense, but their defense as a whole wasn't particularly impressive. So I'm going to give it a B. We'll see what he does. I'm not saying that he's going to be a starter. I think Brandon Jones is ultimately going to be the guy on that spot now, but who knows? Maybe he does something. So we'll see. I'll give it a B for that move. Now we'll go into tight end Eric Saubert. So Eric Saubert, I think, is being underrated as a pass-catching tight end. That's not his main game. He's more of a Durham Smythe type, but unlike Durham Smythe, he does have a little bit more speed. He is able to actually make some catches. There are highlights of him making some interesting catches and doing pretty well after the catch as well. So for him, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give the Dolphins a B+, because while Eric Saubert, again, he's not star power. I try to leave the A's for the things that I really, really, really like. Eric Saubert doesn't necessarily move the needle for me, but as far as a replacement for what Mike Gesicki's spot on the roster was, Eric Saubert is a fantastic move because he is going to take the place of being the backup behind Durham Smythe. I am assuming the Dolphins want Smythe to be their starter, but basically you have starter 1A and starter 1B now with Eric Saubert and Durham Smythe. So who knows? Maybe they'll compete with each other in camp and may the best man win and the other one gets slightly less snaps, I guess. So now we'll get into the 3 New York Jets that the Dolphins decided to sign. We'll start with offensive lineman Dan Feeney. So he used to be a starter with the Los Angeles Chargers. Then he went to New York and his play fell off and he ended up becoming a backup, which is not exactly a strong case for him being the starter now. You could say that he could be the replacement for Michael Dieter, who's now a member of the Houston Texans. But if that's the case, then that just means he's the backup to Connor Williams at center. So maybe he'll compete with the guys like Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg at left guard for the starting job. And if he does win, I would say that's another shot across the port bow for Liam Eichenberg. But who knows? Maybe we'll get something at Dan Feeney. I'm going to go ahead and give the move a B because he may do something, he may not. But if nothing else, he's at least a decent backup if push comes to shove. As for Braxton Berrios, he fills the role of what Trent Sherfield was going to be. So Sherfield now has gone to the Buffalo Bills, and if you listened to last night's episode of Pulse of Fins Nation, you heard me and Ron Caniff going back and forth about Trent Sherfield, what his role on the team was, how important he was, and how important he would have been had he managed to stay. But we've already gone into all of that, and I personally think at this point there's not much more to discuss. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on Trent Sherfield, make sure you go tune into Pulse of Fins Nation, which is still on the 5 Reasons Sports Network on the YouTube channel. So Braxton Berrios, he's going to be the slot guy, I guess. He can be a good returner, I think, because now we don't necessarily have to rely on Cedric Wilson for that job. I think that will free up Cedric Wilson to be more of a wide receiver now, and I think he is going to be the 3rd wide receiver. So Braxton Berrios, I guess, is wide receiver 4 at this point. And then finally, of course, you have the fact that the Miami Dolphins signed quarterback Mike White to be the backup to Tua Tagovailoa. All things considered, Mike White was probably the best move they could have made at an affordable price. Mike White is a very much up and down quarterback. He's very Ryan Fitzpatrick-like in that sense. He's either going to have a great game or he's going to have a terrible game, but you do have the chance to win if push comes to shove. He played in a scheme that was very similar to what Mike McDaniel runs with Mike LaFleur as the offensive coordinator for the Jets that year. So I think this is going to be a very small learning curve for him. I think this is probably a good move. It's not as good as having Jimmy Garoppolo, but Garoppolo is going to be making $20 million a year with the Raiders. So that's just not going to happen. So all things considered, I'm going to go ahead and give Mike White a B+. Excellent move. Excellent backup, and at least somebody who I know will give it his best shot, unlike Teddy Bridgewater, who didn't look like he even wanted to be there anymore. Now, fullback John Lovett, I don't love it. Listen, Alec Ingold proved that he's the fullback of this Miami Dolphins team, and he was a fantastic player. I really like Alec Ingold a lot. As for John Lovett, I mean, he never even touched the field, and even if he had, I don't think he would have done anything. So I'm going to give bringing him back a C, just because I don't see the need to bring him back. What exactly does he do on this team, other than just be the so-called competition for Alec Ingold? I just don't see it, and I don't think he's going to make it. So as far as I'm concerned, I will be just moot and neutral when I have to wave bye-bye to John Lovett after training camp is all over. Now, bringing back linebacker Duke Riley as a reserve player, I like that move a lot. I think that Duke Riley doesn't get nearly as much credit. Again, all of the Miami Dolphins linebackers were kind of asked to do more than what was expected of them, because Duke Riley is a fantastic player as a reserve. Now, if you're trying to make him be a starting caliber player, you're asking too much of him. Because even Jerome Baker, because there's a lot of people who are acting like Jerome Baker is a bad linebacker. He used to be a really good linebacker, but that was when the defense was a lot stronger. Baker had more opportunities to show up because he wasn't being asked to do so much. Last year, he had to be everywhere at the same time, and it was never enough. So now he's going to have some help, and we'll get into that help in just a moment. But bringing back Duke Riley, I'm going to go ahead and give that move a B+. Again, he's not a star, but he is a solid reserve, and the fact that the Miami Dolphins brought him back is very, very good. Bringing back River Craycraft was a good move as well. I'm going to go ahead and give that a B-, just because Craycraft doesn't exactly do anything super special, but he was a fantastic reserve. He even caught a touchdown during that miraculous Baltimore Ravens game where Tua Tagovailoa came back from insurmountable odds in Baltimore against Lamar Jackson's Baltimore Ravens. So I'll give Craycraft credit for being a solid reserve. And I think he will make the roster again, just because they're going to need more players on special teams. Hopefully, he'll actually be able to focus on special teams instead of having to be thrown into the wolves with the offense. Because enough injuries already. Can we have 1 year where we're not just dying from injuries, please? Bringing back Nick Needham on a 1-year deal is an absolute A. I'm not going to give it anything less than an A because Nick Needham as a reserve player is a fantastic move by the Miami Dolphins. I thought for sure he would get looks as a slot corner somewhere. Maybe it's that injury that's keeping him down, but if that is the case, other teams are making a mistake. Nick Needham can play, and if nothing else, I have to give credit to Brian Flores and Josh Boyer for not letting him go when they had the chance, because he's doing a fantastic job, I'll tell you that right now. And the signing of David Long Jr. is going to be an absolute A+. It's definitely an A+, and it's nothing less than an A+. David Long Jr. was supposed to get like 4 years, $55 million from some team, and they're bringing him in on a bargain price. So this is an easy one. Miami Dolphins get an A for David Long. Easy, easy, easy A+. Signing punter Jake Bailey. Okay, the only reason they even needed to do this, though, is because they let Thomas Morstead go to the New York Jets. Jake Bailey's a former New England Patriots punter. Granted, he was a Pro Bowl punter, but it's a very weird scenario. It seems like the AFC East is just rotating their players in hopes that maybe this will be the final piece of the puzzle. But, I mean, I'm a little upset we didn't bring back Thomas Morstead. I will go ahead and give it a B just because Jake Bailey's a former Pro Bowler. He's a punter. I guess he's going to be able to do the job well. I hope he does. I hope he can be just as good as Morstead. That'd be great. If he's a little worse than Morstead, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But dang, man. Why didn't you just bring back Thomas Morstead? The Dolphins also signed linebacker Malik Reed to a 1-year contract. Okay, so Malik Reed has history with Vic Fangio, and this is starting to look like the replacement for Melvin Ingram, which if that's the case is very disappointing to me. I think Melvin Ingram was really going to be a fantastic veteran move for the Miami Dolphins. You need some kind of veteran leadership on there, and I guess now that's Bradley Chubb and Xavier Howard and them. But if it were me, Melvin Ingram was a solid player for the Dolphins last season. I don't understand not bringing him back if that is indeed what's happening here. But in the time that Malik Reed spent with Vic Fangio, he had a pretty good, solid season. So this definitely seems like a Vic Fangio move. I'll go ahead and I'll give this move a B because I don't know if Malik Reed is going to be as good as he was with Vic Fangio the first time, but I just personally feel like I would have preferred to have Melvin Ingram. You know what? I'm actually talking myself into a B- just because I really wanted to have Melvin Ingram back. So B- for the Dolphins on this one. Maybe I'm proven wrong, and maybe Malik Reed turns out to be a stud. I don't know. But right now, I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. Now, re-signing Andrew Van Ginkel. So, again, I just feel like Melvin Ingram was the better choice, but I will bump this one up to a B because Andrew Van Ginkel at least has history with the Miami Dolphins. I've seen what he can do on a regular basis. I've seen the kind of motor that he has, and he also has special teams value as well. So, to bring back Andrew Van Ginkel on a 1-year deal, I'm perfectly fine with that. I think that and again, this is another Vic Fangio thing because reports are that Vic Fangio personally went to Van Ginkel and said, I want you to come back. And so he came back on a 1-year deal, and I guess we'll do this again. Maybe Vic Fangio is going to be like, I'm going to be able to help you get paid next season. So we will see. I'll go ahead and I'll give the Dolphins a B for Vic Fangio personally coming back to say, I want Andrew Van Ginkel back. And finally, the Miami Dolphins exercised Tua Tagovailoa's 5th-year option. I'm not even going to get into all the reasons why that is an A, because anybody who knows me by now knows how I feel about Tua Tagovailoa as a quarterback. They know how I feel about the whole situation with what Tua is being given. Too harsh of a look. He's being given too much crap. He's being given too much no benefit of the doubt whatsoever. Like, if it's not his injury history, it's this false idea of concern for his well-being. I guarantee you nobody cares that much about his well-being, because we literally have somebody from the Buffalo Bills who almost died on the field, and there's nobody telling him that he shouldn't go back to play football again. He is going to go back and play football some more, and if he can do it, I guarantee you Tua can too. So all this talk about how he's one hit away from never being able to walk again or never being able to talk again, or whatever stuff, I just don't believe you. I really don't. And so Tua is an A, easy A. So just based on the GPA that I give the Miami Dolphins with those A pluses, I'm going to go ahead and say that this overall offseason, this first quarter, has been a B plus. It could have been an A if they had managed to get somebody worth mentioning at right tackle, but again, there is still time for that to happen. So we will see where the Miami Dolphins go from here. We're going to go ahead and call it here because we've already been running for longer than I was expecting us to. But when you have so many transactions to talk about, it tends to take a little bit of time. So with all that said, I'll try to go into more detail on the next show if there's any details that I think need to be talked about. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a B plus first quarter of the offseason for the Miami Dolphins. But if you want to test your expertise in the world of sports and give people some grades for what they can accomplish, you should go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit. Go ahead and start choosing overs and unders on everybody's fantasy point projections. Can you guess how many points Anthony Davis is going to get the next game that he plays? Can you guess how many times that Steph Curry is going to shoot a three-pointer? If you can, and you can bet the over or the under, you can start winning some big-time money. So you go to prizepicks.com, use that promo code, that's 5, FIVE, and start winning today. And if you are a South Florida resident that needs to have impact-rated windows and doors installed on either your house or your commercial property, make sure that you contact All Pro Construction Builders. They only use top quality products, and call Danny at 305-484-4429 and make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount. Again, that's Danny at 305-484-4429, All Pro Construction Builders. And with that, we will see you all next time for the next show of Fins Nation.